Thank you all for joining us. Again, just to tag on to the programs, I also encourage you to go online and look at vailsymposium.org. We did launch a couple new programs just this week, including another Clay Jenkinson program, the top 10 photographs of all time. We added another geopolitical program in April with Dr. Tanvi Madan on the fateful triangle of India, China, and the United States. So please take a look at those programs as well as we continue to add to our season. Now for tonight, to introduce Dan Ahdoot is his friend, food and travel writer, Paul Feinstein. Paul has been writing and editing in Los Angeles and around the world for more than 20 years, writing numerous travel guides and for myriad publications, including the BBC, Travel and Leisure, Fodor's Travel, Time, Zagat, and more. He is the author of Italy Cocktails and is a producer on the Food and Travel Show From Scratch with David Moscow, another Vail Symposium program speaker. Please welcome Paul Feinstein and have a lot of fun with these two.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Is it working? We're good? All right. So, welcome. Thank you for having us. Before I bring Dan out, and he's the star of the show, obviously, I just want to give one quick little anecdote from today. I was on the chairlift with Dan and my father. Is he here? Neil? There he is. You all know Neil Kimmel. And Neil turns to Dan and he says, "You know, I read your bio in the Vail Daily. I didn't realize you were famous." And Dan, we played it off. Everything was good. But then I start thinking, like, well, what did he think this was going to be? Like, so you all know my mother as well, Kathy Kimmel, and she's on the board of the Symposium. So I'm thinking, like, does my dad think that this is like a pity thing? Like he's helping out in some way? And not only is it pity for Kathy's poor son Paul, but also poor Paul's friend Dan, who just needs a break in Hollywood, possibly. I can assure you that is not the case. Dan is very bona fide. He is a very accomplished entertainer. You are going to love him tonight. He's my funniest friend and one of the funniest people I've ever met. Dan has the #1 food podcast in America. It's called Green Eggs and Dan. It's brilliant. It's hilarious. Dan is a nationally headlining comedian. He performs in major venues all over the country. He performs on The Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien. The Tonight Show and also Conan O'Brien, many times. He's on the biggest show on Netflix. Have you seen Cobra Kai? And Dan wrote this amazing book, Undercooked. It's wonderful. We're going to talk about it tonight. And with that said, one of my best friends, funniest people I know, I would love to introduce you to Dan Ahdoot.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. That's right, I've been on The Tonight Show, I've been on Cobra Kai, but this is the highlight of my career. The Presbyterian Church in Avon. It's what every young comedian dreams of. By the way, we were backstage. The wine that they use for the sacrament is a Portuguese red blend, which is the worst advertising for Portuguese wine ever.
No one's enjoying that sacrament.
No.
Before we get started, a few, to use James's language, a few programming notes. One, we are not related in spite of our both very good, dark, handsome looks. Two, in Dan's book, which if you haven't read it, it's beautiful, and we're going to talk about it. It's the only time that Vail has ever been referenced in a way that makes it sound less expensive than something else, and that's in terms of a hunting trip versus a Vail trip. So congratulations on that. And we just want to, before we get started, really just thank the Vail Symposium. So
yes, thank you so much. It's been such a blast. I've been going skiing every day with someone from the Symposium, and it's been humbling to realize how awful of a skier I am. Especially Dale took me out today. I don't know, where's Dale? He was wearing a helmet, so oh, there you are. Yeah. I thought it was going to be a real easy day with Dale. And every second he's like, let's do this mogul run. I'm like, Dale, I want to be at the event tonight in one piece. And I was so exhausted that I lied to him and said I wanted to leave early to prepare for tonight. But it's just because he totally ran me into the ground. So thank you, Dale.
Yes. Good job, Dale. So thank you, Kathy, James, thank you, Megan, Dale, Lori, who am I forgetting? Anyone? Kevin, especially, for helping organize all this stuff. So thank you, Kevin, as well. All right, so let's get started.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about how we met?
Sure. We met fairly recently. We were at a food event in Los Angeles, and I don't really make new friends anymore. I'm done with that. I don't know about you guys. Are you done? After I hit 40, I just wanted no new friends. And I met Paul at this event, and it was a pretty lame food event in LA. But we started talking, and we realized that we had a lot of shared interests, and we got along really well. And it's weird, you know. I want to be friends with him, but I don't want him to think I'm coming on to him. So I was like, you want to go out to dinner sometime? I have a girlfriend, by the way, just so you know. But we started to go out to dinner together, and we had a real great time, and we've become fast friends.
Yeah, and it was over the process of this time that we became friends that Dan actually got this book deal and wrote this book, and we're going to talk about it. So, yeah, let's get into the book. So did you want to write a book?
No, I never wanted to write a book. Has anyone here ever written a book? Yeah, it's awful. It's the worst thing ever. You have written a book? What's your book about? Accounting. Okay. Okay.
It's very funny.
He wins. Okay. Suddenly my book was very exciting to write. It's very, very difficult to write. I've never had an intention to write a book. The way that it happened was, I hunt, and the only reason I hunt is because I love food. I've never wanted to kill an animal, but I love eating animals. And so I got into hunting, and I'm a Jew from Long Island. I'm not really the hunting type. I'm more of the gathering type. So I started going on these hunting trips with my friend Mo, and something funny always happened on these trips. So I wrote to Steve Ranella, who I'm not sure if you know who he is. He's probably the biggest hunting influencer in the country. He's got the #1 hunting show on Netflix, the #1 hunting podcast in the country. And I just wrote to him some of my stories and asked him if he'd have me on the podcast. And he called me and said he liked the stories, and if I can get to Montana, that he'd have me on. So I had to fly myself to Montana, and I did his podcast. And they're not used to having comedians on hunting podcasts. And hunters, I don't know if you've ever met them. They're not funny. They're not. they're not funny at all. So the episode did very well, and it went pretty viral. And my manager listened to it, and she said, "You should write a movie about your buddy, like your hunting buddy, Mo. Why don't you write a buddy comedy?" I said, "Okay." So I started to write this outline, and we went back and forth with it, and we both didn't like it. And she said, "Well, why don't you just do some free writing about why you love food so much?" And I was like, "Oh, I love it because it's delicious." And she said, no, like this is like you just got on a plane to go to Montana to talk about hunting with some stranger. Like, why do you like food so much? So I started to write this whole thing about my childhood and my relationship with my father and my brother, and gave it to her. And she said, "I think this is a chapter of a book. This is not a movie. Do you have any other chapters in you?" And I said, "Yeah." So I wrote 2 more chapters. One about going to the #1 restaurant in the world, the day that it became the #1 restaurant in the world, and returning a dish in the tasting menu. And the other one was about buying a gun in a gun store, and gun store etiquette, and what it's like to be in a gun store. And so, long story short, she sent it to my lit agent, and suddenly there was a bidding war, and then I had a book deal, and now I had to write a book, and I'm not a writer. Like I'm a comedy writer for TV, but this was a completely new medium for me, and it was very, very difficult. Not as difficult as writing an accounting book. My God, but sorry, I don't know if I can say that here, but it was.
You're all right.
I think he understands too. He's like, yes, no, that would suck. That would suck to write
He might be more offended that you insulted the wine.
The wine.
Yeah.
Portuguese red blends are actually fine.
How dare you?
Yeah. So it became a total accident, and then my whole next year and a half was just consumed by writing this book.
Yeah, and it's funny for me because this is really when Dan and I became good friends, and so I got to read some sample chapters, and we're going out to all these amazing restaurants, and we're having all these fun conversations. But this book is it's a deep dive into Dan's psyche. It was like I assume everyone here is a fan of Anthony Bourdain, correct? They love him. They watched his show. He's this authentic, tortured soul, and I didn't realize that my friend was also tortured, but in a very good way.
Where is this going?
No. So, oh shit. Sorry, James. It's my one shit. Sorry, God.
Yes,
All
apologize to God. You just cursed in the house of the Lord.
Like, sorry, everyone.
Okay.
No, but this book, if you ever read his book, Kitchen Confidential, you really see this whole world of food through his lens of authenticity. And when I read this book, because it really takes this whole journey with Dan, his relationship with his father, which I think we should talk about a little bit.
Sure.
And why he's obsessed with food, but in this really funny, authentic way that brings you into the world of food in ways that no one else has. And I just thought it was like the best food memoir I had read, and I know we're friends, I get it, but like it was the best food memoir, and I read all of them, and it was the best one I had read since Kitchen Confidential, and I just wanted to
That's very nice of you. Thank you.
So why don't we talk about your relationship with your father and explain how this book sort of takes you on this path?
Yeah, so I mean, all of this, I realized it kind of as I was doing the free writing. I didn't have this in mind before, but it was basically, I grew up, my dad was very, very into going to great restaurants. He basically spent most of his formative years in Europe, and in New York, growing up, we'd always go to these great, nice restaurants, and it was always like, we'd get this, I had two brothers, an older brother and a younger brother, and this was the thing that I had with my dad. My brothers didn't have this with my dad. It was just me and him, and we'd go to restaurants alone, and it was really nice, and it was a special thing that I had. As a middle child, you try to get attention, and I found the thing that I could get my dad's attention with. We started to love food together. And then, tragically, my older brother passed away, and my parents became very, very religious, and I feel like you go one way or the other. They became very religious, and I lost that relationship with my dad, because he started to go to all these kosher restaurants, and this game that we used to play was basically over. And so I think my coping mechanism was to fill that hole with a relationship to food myself, without my father. So, I basically took it as far as I could go. I got into hunting because I thought that's pretty rebellious to do that as someone who came from a non-hunting family. I worked in a Michelin star restaurant in New York, and I started dating people that just because of food stuff. I was engaged to a woman who was a chef that we had no business being engaged, but she was a chef, and so that didn't work out. And I just went on this wild goose chase to fill that hole, fill that relationship, and it got me nowhere. And so this book is basically essays of me coming to that realization, but it's very funny also. Like there's very funny essays, about food, but with an arc that leads to me realizing these things.
That you can't actually fill the hole in your soul with
Yeah.
food. Okay, we'll get back to that in a second. So I want you to tell us a couple of stories. You, as an Iranian Jew, you have a very fascinating...
Any other Iranian Jews here?
Yeah, there's one.
There's one. My brother. My brother's here.
His brother's here. He can relate to the stories.
We've increased the Iranian Jewish population by 200%. I don't know if the math was right on that. The accountant is like, actually, it was at 0, so it's a non-zero sum.
No, but you have a really interesting perspective on food because of your background. Can you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, so I am an Iranian Jew, which is really one of those classic combinations like peanut butter and cat. But Iranian Jews are a very, very interesting subset of Jews in that they've only lived in Iran for thousands and thousands of years, and then came over to America in the 70s. Nothing in the middle, no Spain, no diaspora really. It was basically just that. So our connection to Iran is we've been there before everyone, kind of. And when my family had to leave because of the revolution, they had to leave everything. They had to leave money, land, anything they could. The only thing they could bring, basically, was the food, the recipes. So cooking Persian food became like the way that my grandmothers would connect with us. Like that was their way of connecting us to this place that we're probably never ever going to be able to go to, right? And so it played a real important role, and I think in like making food an important part of my life because it had such like a hard meaning to it, But yeah, and Iranian food is interesting, and most people don't know about it. It's basically like Indian food, but substitute the spice with herbs. So it's super floral, very herbal, really delicious food. And it's basically our only connection to Iran, It's like that and Persian rugs, which, ironically, my dad does sell for a living. My dad sells rugs. He is a rug dealer, and as he says it, I am a rug dealer, so everyone thinks my dad's a drug dealer. He's like, I got Persian, I got Afghan, I show you colors you've never seen before. But yeah, so food played a very formative role in connecting us to our roots as well.
Got it. So I want to talk a little bit off of that subject. In the food world, there's a lot of hubbub with this idea of cultural appropriation and who's allowed to cook what and why and why not. Do you have like a take on that world in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I'm very pro-cultural appropriation when it comes to food. I really am, and that's not a joke. I think that the thing that makes food beautiful is that we borrow from cultures and we mix and match with them. And I think that in America, where we have all these different cultures, we do it in a very fun, respectful way. But if you look at history, it wasn't done in a fun, respectful way, right? It was like the Moors went and took over Sicily, killed everyone, and like left a bag of saffron, and now there's saffron in food in Sardinia. You know what I mean? It's like, so I think cultural appropriation and cultural mixing has happened forever with food. It was just a lot more violent. And now I think we have the opportunity to do it in like a really interesting, fun way. And I think that there's nothing better than borrowing from another culture. It's giving it homage, right?
Yeah.
And I don't care what the color of the person is who's cooking the food, as long as the food is delicious. So I think people are getting into this game of like, well, you need to be this color to cook that, or you need to be that color to appreciate this, and it's like, just do it with everything else, but leave it alone with food. Like, please let us have fusion. Like, fun fusions are like the best, I think. And so, yeah, I feel very strongly about that. I'm guessing some of you disagree with me. Yeah? No. Okay, you agree with me. Okay. Accountant? Accountant agrees with me. Okay, good.
Yeah, I always give the classic example of pizza, and pizza is like the perfect global fusion food. Like, oh no, pizza's Italian; it has to be Italian. And in Italy, there's a consortium for everything in the country. So Parmigiano Reggiano has a consortium. Chianti has a consortium, and by the way, Neapolitan pizza also has a consortium because Neapolitan pizza was created in the late 1800s. And people say, oh, you can't cook Neapolitan pizza. It's not authentic. It's not real. But, people don't realize that flatbreads came from Egypt, and the tomato came from Peru, and the buffalo mozzarella arguably came from Mesopotamia, and the flour that they use, which is 00 flour, wasn't invented until 50 years ago. And so, like, this is the most global food item you could ever imagine, yeah. And it's like, I think it's emblematic of everything that I think we both love about.
Yeah, and you can play that game with any food. Go ahead, yell out a food.
Anyone?
Bagels. No, that's just Jews. No, but bagels, hold on. We can actually play this game with bagels.
We can play this game with bagels.
We can. Because, a lot of bagels have different toppings. Like the sesame seed came from Mesopotamia. It's an original grain from the Middle East. So, and the bagel is, boiling. That was like an Eastern European thing, right? That wasn't the Jews ran with it, but it was definitely like that was the culture that it came out of. And then you also have Montreal bagels that are baked, which.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we couldn't tell. Yes, you see, so you can't bake a bagel unless you're from Montreal. That would be an awful way to live. Or me, like I'm not an Ashkenazi Jew, so does that mean that I can't make a bagel? You know what I mean? It's
As long as you make it good.
What's that? So chicken tikka masala was actually invented in England. It's funny, it's the national dish of England is chicken tikka masala, which tells you how bad English food is.
Also, ketchup is Chinese.
Ketchup is Chinese, yes. Tacos.
Oh,
So the al pastor taco is actually a very interesting one.
That's a good one.
They have that spit with the pork on it, and they slice the pork, and they put it in, that's an al pastor taco. And that happened in the late 1800s when Lebanese immigrants immigrated to Mexico, bringing their shawarma spit, and people in Mexico had a lot more pork than they had lamb, so they'd put pork on it instead of lamb, and they'd slice it off. So the al pastor is actually a Lebanese taco. Like, you can do this everywhere. I mean, so that's why it's like, it's a fun game to play, but it's not a fun game to play when people take it seriously.
Yeah, I agree.
I got stumped on the bagel.
No, I think you landed the plane. It was okay. We got there. Montreal saved you.
Yeah.
But there was a million examples. He's right. I mean, like ramen is not Japanese. It's only because after World War II there was a rice famine in Japan, and Americans were shipping in wheat, and the Chinese taught the Japanese how to make noodles.
And we were shipping in pork after World War II, which is the only reason you have these pork broths and ramen. Ramen is probably the most American food that there is.
Yeah. It is
in a weird way.
In a weird way. I mean, sushi, another good example. Someone called out sushi. Sushi was peasant food. It was you couldn't afford cooked fish, so you figured it out with a little bit of rice and a little bit of fish. But it was not a luxury item in any way, shape, or form.
Right. And last night I went to Matsuhisa and told them that, and they said, "No, sir, you must leave."
It's just $100 just to walk in the door.
Yes.
It doesn't. That spirit has left.
Yes, it has. Although I did spend $22 on hot chocolate today at the Four Seasons. Woo, baby. Wow.
That's right.
That's an aggressive hot chocolate. Has anyone had this? Have you taken a second mortgage to get one? Yeah, it's nice, huh? It's started on Instagram? This is a big issue that I have with food. I mean, we'll get to pet peeves in a minute, but it does seem that chefs are tailoring their dishes to the algorithm of Instagram now. And I think it's really sad. But you'll start noticing that restaurants are a lot brighter, they're lit a lot brighter than they used to be, and that's so that people's pictures come out nicely to post. Isn't that sad? Anyway, but I digress. That hot chocolate was so fun to put on video, and I will be posting it on Instagram.
Let's talk about hunting.
Okay.
So your hunting buddy, Mo, he's an Iraqi Muslim.
Yeah,
you're
al-Humadi.
You're an Iranian Jew. Can you tell us about what that looks like for your fellow hunters as you go along?
Well, it was interesting. I went to Johns Hopkins University, and humble brag, and no, you guys are all Harvard people. You're like, Johns Hopkins was my safety school. But I went to Hopkins, and one of my buddies that I made there, he's from upstate New York, in a very rural part of upstate New York, and he's a hunter. So when I decided to go hunting, he was the person that I called. And it was shortly after 9/11 that we actually started hunting on Long Island. He was doing his residency on Long Island. And I still remember we got caught once by the Fish and Game Warden, and it was like two Middle Eastern guys with guns and a canoe, and we're like, I swear, we are just hunting. But I tell people this, and they think I'm being facetious. The fact that my best friend is Muslim and I'm Jewish is the least interesting thing about our relationship. It's like I couldn't care less, and he couldn't care less. And I feel like that's kind of how it works in the real world, right? Like you don't really feel like people have to check off this box and that box. That's creepy to me. You just get along, and if you get along, you get along. So I don't know. To me, I've written TV scripts, and I'll make characters Muslim, and then I'll never talk about anything Islam related. Or I'll make a character Jewish and never talk, and I'll get a note of like, don't you think you should address? I'm like, no, because that's not how it is in real life. No one really cares in general, you know. On the phones they'll care, but in real life I don't think people care very much. But the stories that we had from hunting were basically what helped propel this book and what got it going.
So, what do you think this book did for you personally? Like
I will say this though, I started out, I hated hunting. Does anyone hunt here? Are you a hunter? Yeah. Did you grow up hunting? Yes. Yeah. So you loved it from the start. Yeah. I didn't. I had to learn to love hunting, and it was very traumatizing in the beginning. But then, you know, I don't know. I feel like people can get used to anything, and ethically, it's so easy to argue for hunting, in my opinion. And so I learned to love it, and I do love it. And it is way more expensive than skiing, which you wouldn't think. You're thinking, oh, it's a redneck getting a gun going out. These guns are expensive. And the gear is very expensive. It's way more expensive than skiing at Vail. And Vail is, you know, I don't have to tell you guys, $22 hot chocolates. But it's, you know, I love doing it, and it gives me a pantry, and it gives me a fridge that I could never otherwise have. You know, you can't. What's more local and sustainable than, you know, a deer that lived its whole life out in the wild and had a bad last 10 seconds.
There's nothing you can say about that. So the book, which they are going to be selling afterward, and Dan will be signing, you should all get this book. It's really beautiful. But the subtitle of the book is How I Let Food Become My Life, Navigator, and How Maybe That's a Dumb Way to Live.
Right.
And so Dan goes through this journey, and he learns all these lessons. But Dan, I know you very, very well, and I know that you have not learned anything, because this is still how you live your life.
Okay, that's, wow, with friends like these. It's true, yes, I'm still obsessed with good food, and I love seeking out good food. But I think the main thing is I was putting the food above what the vehicle of the food is, which is to bring people together, right? And to have a good meal with someone. Like, it's called breaking bread. It's not called breaking heirloom sourdough, single yeast origin bread. Like,
it's very good bread.
And I feel like I was saying to you, I was like, I think that every single restaurant review should end with an asterisk saying, none of this matters if you're eating with someone that you don't want to eat with, right? It doesn't matter how good the food is, you're gonna have a bad meal. And we had a very funny experience recently where Paul and I and two of our other friends went out to a restaurant in LA called Lowry's Prime Rib, and we had such an awful meal, but we had so much fun that it was probably like my favorite meal of the last year.
Yeah, it was a top 5 all-time fun meal with the worst food that we've had
yeah,
all the time. Yeah,
but we had such a blast, and you and I, we are kindred spirits. Like, we both play this game, and we both, I think, at times have messed up putting the food before the company or the food before the connection. And I just feel like I've gotten a little less dogmatic about it. But that being said, I still love great food, and I'll pay $22 for a hot chocolate. I can't believe I paid $22 for a hot chocolate. It's so crazy.
Where was that chocolate from?
What's that?
We can't believe it was only 22.
Oh, really?
It's like, so did you get the entertainment discount?
No, I didn't. That's really funny. Yeah, no, it was. I'm trying to think. What else was egregiously?
Yeah, what have you done in Vail? Where have you eaten so far? Who can?
Oh, well, I go to the Vail Club in the afternoon.
The food's not that great, though.
No, the food sucks at the Vail Club. Sorry, Kathy. Thanks for bringing me. Where else? Oh, last night we had a great meal. We went to Montauk.
We went to Montauk last night.
Yeah. Had the Chilean sea bass. Chilean sea bass is a very interesting fish. It used to be called Patagonian toothfish. That's the actual name of the fish. And they weren't selling at all. So they hired like an advertising firm to come and rebrand Patagonian toothfish, and they called it Chilean sea bass, and it sold like hotcakes to the point where Chilean sea bass was like at the point of extinction. And now they finally have figured out a way to make it more sustainable. But that to me is like a very funny story of a rebrand. Are there other good rebrand stories like that?
Man, there's like, I feel like ahi tuna had a big rebrand. Well, let's talk about tinned fish. You want to talk about tinned fish?
Oh, this is a trend that is taking over the food world that is driving me insane. You'll go to a restaurant and they'll say, "Would you like some tinned fish?" And it sounds exciting, right? It's got a hard consonant. And they bring you over a can of tuna, basically. And they're like, "Here you go. Here's your artisanal tinned fish." And they move they unscrew the top halfway, like it's your father opening a jar for you. And they're like, "Here you go. Here's your tinned fish. We're gonna charge you 10x what we paid for this at the supermarket." That's my least favorite food trend lately.
Let's talk a little bit about your podcast. So Dan has this amazing podcast called Green Eggs and Dan. You want to tell the concept?
Yeah, so I interview celebrities, and it's all based off of a picture of the fridge of the celebrity. So you get to see what's inside their fridge, and then we talk about the fridge for a while, and then we get into an organic conversation about their fridge. And we've had a lot of big celebrities on. Paul Feinstein was a guest. His book is out, fantastic book about Italian cocktails. And we've had, who else have we had?
Padma Lakshmi.
Padma Lakshmi was on, Jacques Pepin was on, Paul F. Tompkins. What's his name? I always forget the Fonz's name.
Oh, Henry
Winkler.
Henry Winkler.
Henry Winkler had the funniest, this is a very funny Henry Winkler story real quick. But the whole conceit of this podcast is you have to send me a picture of your fridge, of the inside of your fridge, and then I will post it on my Instagram, and everyone gets to look at it while we talk about the inside of your fridge. We're 3 minutes before recording, and it's on Zoom, and I don't have Henry Winkler's fridge. And I reach out to his assistant, and I'm like, "Hi, I don't have his fridge yet, and we're about to start." And she said, "Yes, give me a minute." She writes back, she says, "Yes, Henry says he doesn't want to send you his fridge, but he's very excited to talk to you." So I was like, "Well, I'm sorry, but you have to tell Henry we can't do the episode unless we have the fridge. Like, we need this fridge." And she's like, "This is Henry Winkler. Do you know who he is? He doesn't want to send his fridge. He's not going to send it." I was like, "Well, then we're canceling the episode." And she's like, "Well, then cancel it, we will." And then I was like, "Wait, can we just send a picture of the inside of the door of Henry Winkler's fridge?" She was like, "Hold on. Yes, we can do that." So I get a blurry picture of the inside door of Henry Winkler's fridge, which all begs the question, what the hell is in Henry Winkler's fridge? What is he hiding?
What is he hiding?
But yes, that is the podcast has done very well because it's fun. People like to see celebrities' fridges, and also everyone loves to talk about food, right? I mean, even the accountant is like perking up about food.
So one of the fun things that Dan does in the podcast...
I promise I'm going to stop picking on you now. I promise. He's like, "I'm going to call the IRS on you, and you're going to get audited now."
So Dan asks all of his guests a bunch of questions, so I thought I would ask you the same questions that you asked them.
Okay.
'Cause I think that would be fun. So one of the first questions you ask is, what is your first food memory?
Yes, earliest food memory. So my earliest food memory was actually a falafel sandwich in Israel. I'd gone with my family, I think I was probably 4 or 5 years old. And I remember having it outside, and I remember having those flavors, those Middle Eastern flavors, for the first time. And they were all very exciting to me. And yeah, that was my earliest food memory.
Okay, next.
Which, funny enough, actually,
next?
sorry,
No.
give me 1 second. Which leads into one of the chapters of the book, which is
Do you want to talk about it?
playing Falafel Phil.
You want to talk about it?
I acted on a Disney Channel show. Please stay seated. And the name of my character on this show was Falafel Phil. It was so racist. But yeah, it ruined my earliest food memory for me. It definitely ruined it. But if any of you know kids who are, do you know Falafel Phil? Okay. Thank you. My ego has been destroyed. How old are you? 12? You're in the demo, man. Do you have Netflix or Hulu or? You do? Is Megan your mom? Okay, we're gonna have a talk with Megan after the show. Who's your favorite celebrity? Yeah, what now? Thank you, Dad. His dad goes, the right answer here is Dan Ahdoot.
All right. Okay. So one of the questions Dan asked every one of his guests is, what would be your death row meal? Like, what would you do?
Death row meal, so your last meal.
Last meal on Earth.
What would it be?
After killing somebody.
After killing somebody.
In a horrendous way.
I think, for me, it would probably be, this is going to sound so pretentious. You can, earmuffs. It would probably be like a duck confit. I remember that was like one of the first like high-end things that I ever had, and I thought it was so delicious and exciting. Any duck confit fans in the house? Yes, my people. All right, great. Yeah, that's probably what it would be.
All right, next. What is your favorite high-end meal you've ever had?
Best high-end meal I ever had was at a restaurant in New York called Blue Hill. Has anyone been to Blue Hill? Yes, Montreal. Blue Hill at Stone Barns. It's this restaurant that's on a farm, and you get there, and they bring the food out, and they explain like, oh, this carrot had a wonderful life. It did yoga and Pilates every morning. I mean, it's so pretentious, but really fun. And did you like the food? Yeah, it's great. It's really wonderful.
All right, best low-end meal.
Best low-end meal. I'm going to go back to the Al Pastor taco. There's an Al Pastor taco in LA at this place called La Reina, which is this old Mexican woman who's on the side of the road in a cart. Each one is $1. They're like, this big, little tacos. And I don't think there's a better ROI on a food than that taco. Speaking your language.
All right. A food you can't stand.
A food I can't stand. Okay, I'm going to answer it two ways. Number one, I can't stand like diet flavors, like diet soda. Man, like I have that, like the cilantro gene thing, like something in my mouth rejects everything that has like a diet flavor in it. I don't know why. And then, okay, the Jews are not going to be happy with me on this one. I can't get down with pickled herring.
Oh.
I'll leave. I understand. Oh my God, you guys just turned on me, the Montreal couple? She just went like this. Smoked fish, I love. There's something about pickled herring, there's like a sweetness, something about sweet and fish. I can't do it.
Shtetl food's never been great.
Shtetl food. My new cookbook coming out, Shtetl food. Am I alone on this? Can someone join me? Oh, yeah, thank you guys. Where were you when I was getting heckled by Montreal?
All right, next is restaurant pet peeves.
Restaurant pet peeves. I have a lot.
I'm sure this crowd also has many.
Yes. Who has a great restaurant pet peeve here? Yes.
We went to a restaurant, and let's just say I am a very enthusiastic eater.
Okay. But by the way, you're giving a TED Talk now? I just wanted like a one. I remember the day very fondly. Okay, got it. Okay, the waiter didn't know what a crummer was. This is the most Vail answer ever. Could you believe it? The waiter did not know what a crummer was. And I said, what kind of Dave and Buster's is this? No, okay, so there were crumbs on the table. That's a good one. You didn't have a way to get the crumbs out. Okay.
Everybody else at the table was making fun.
Was it like a fancy place? Okay. Ish? Chipotle is fancy-ish. I think my restaurant pet peeves, again, I have a lot of them. Music too loud. Who's with me? Oh, yeah.
This is your audience.
I know my audience. Wobbly chair. I will kill somebody. Water not being filled up is a very, very good one. Bathrooms, what do you mean? Yes, gross bathrooms. I thought you just meant bathrooms in general. You're like, I don't want a bathroom at a restaurant. People do it before they come or after they leave. Yes, Kathy. Touching the top. Now I see where you get it from.
It's starting to make sense.
That's a good one. That's a deep cut, the top of the glass.
You get like the thumbprint on the spot.
Yeah.
It's rough.
That's a good one. I have restaurant pet peeves with people that I go to restaurants with as well. For example, one that my good friend Paul gave me is I don't like going out to dinner with people who just had a baby. Because they have their phone on the table with a live stream of their baby in the crib in like a creepy black and white, like a horror film.
I'm so sorry.
He's like, isn't my baby cute? I'm like, no, it's terrifying.
And it's got like the ring eyes, and it's it's not good. I'm sorry.
I don't like that. I don't like the QR code menu. Oh, that is the worst. Because it forces you to have your phone at the table. And I think that the phone doesn't have a place at the dinner table. Yes! This is what happens when there's no one in their 20s at your show. We're all on the same page, absolutely.
You both felt really young and really old all at the same time. What about...
Have you dined with us before? Least favorite question. When they say, have you dined with us before? I always say yes, no matter what.
Why?
Because I'm never going to get information that's necessary. It's never going to be really important information. Like, just so you know, we do things differently here. Our plates are made out of razor blades. And I am your biological father. Like, okay, that would be information I need to know. No, it's always just a scam to get you to order more food. They're like, okay, here's what we recommend here. We recommend you have anywhere between 12 and 17 small plates per person. Between 5 and 35 medium plates, and depending on your appetite, 4 to 55 entrees per person.
And make sure you get the Chilean sea bass for $80.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Does anyone else have a very good one? These are fun. Yes. Yes. I shouldn't have to use Duolingo to read your menu. I don't need Rosetta Stone. Like, tell me what it is. Why? There was a funny thing that happened where there was a restaurant we went to I went with a buddy of mine in LA, and they described the dish as having uni, which is sea urchin. And it wasn't a Japanese restaurant. So why are you calling it by its Japanese name?
It's fair.
Right?
No, it's fair.
Call it sea urchin.
So mine, which I think you'll probably make fun of me for, is similar to this, the pretentious. So you will see now on the menus, and I think you also hate this, where there's like a V and a PF and a G, and there's all the things, right? And they'll list out 17 ingredients of what is in the dish because everyone has an allergy and everyone's got a thing.
Yeah.
But they always leave out like 2 things, as if you're going to steal the recipe somehow and figure it out on the side. But they always like leave out 2. So like
you're saying you want more things listed?
I want all the things.
All the things?
All the things.
You just want the recipe listed?
All the
you want
things.
the menu to be like
I want
35 pages?
I want all or nothing.
Okay.
Give me every single item, because like my decision making will maybe be determined by those last 2 things that they did not mention.
Apparently, I have a new restaurant pet peeve, which is Paul Feinstein.
I told you.
Yes, Ernst & Young.
I wonder if anyone else has this. So we travel a lot.
Yeah.
In central Turkey, you're there because you don't want to be around Americans.
Okay.
You go into a restaurant that's recommended, and everybody's speaking American English.
Yes.
It is time to leave the restaurant.
Yes.
You agree?
I'm with you. Okay, so you're saying when you go to a foreign country and everyone is American, you say, get me away from these Americans, even though I'm American. I'm with you. That happened to me recently. I was at a restaurant in Paris that they're like, this is the best bistro in Paris, and I went in there and everyone was American, and
it's basically people like me who are ruining it because we write about it.
No, but here's the thing. I'm going to give this a glass half full thing. Food. There were no American foodies in America up until like the 80s and 90s. Like food was not a big thing in America. Like it was very like everything was it was fast food. It was microwavable food. There wasn't like a foodie culture or anything like that here. You know, it was like when I grew up in New York, there was like 1 or 2 fancy French restaurants in the city, and that was it. That was like where you could go eat. And then people in America started to focus on food. And I always say this, when Americans put their minds towards something, they're going to go further. We're going to land on the moon. We're going to build a car. We're going to do whatever we can to beat everyone else, right? And so once we got obsessed with food, I think that our food culture catapulted further than almost anywhere else in the world. And I've told this to Paul. I think the best food right now in the world is in America. I think America's got an amazing food culture. LA, New York, have arguably better food than most cities in Europe. Yes.
But also, there's like 9,000 cooking shows now on TV.
Yes. So the Food Network has a lot to do with that, and I think that people have gotten into food. I mean, people have gotten into interesting foods and into different cultures' foods. And again, it's this thing of what we were talking about cultural appropriation. Like Americans are very good at taking a culture and borrowing from it and having fun with it. Italians, Paul loves Italy. Italians are the worst at it. They are the worst. Like they are like so dogmatic about, if this pasta, you put 1 more milliliter of water, my grandmother would kill you. I'm like, okay. But in America, we do all these fun things, and I think that we did it with beer. Beers in America weren't that great, and then we got obsessed with beers, and now our beers are the best in the world.
Wine as well.
Wine too. Like we're getting obsessed with wine, and a lot of our wines are becoming, the best in the world. So I get what you're saying, and I agree with you. But it's also part of the bigger picture of like it's cool that our country is now really excited and interested in like cool niche, food. Like the fact that a restaurant in Central Turkey is full of Americans, saying like, "This is a little too spicy." It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's both good and bad.
Yeah.
And again, like people like me, I write, guidebooks for a living, and you guys are all reading them, and everyone's reading the same thing, and this goes for social media, and it goes for, a lot of people will flock to these things that, unfortunately or fortunately, you're helping a business, but at the same time, you're maybe ruining that experience for somebody. So it's a tough, there's so many times when I'll write about food, and I'll be doing a guide in a city, and I won't include a restaurant that I'm obsessed with because I don't want that for that very reason. And hopefully they won't go out of business because I didn't help them.
Right.
It's a little.
The poor restaurant gets the guidebook. They're like, he had such a great time. We have to be mentioned. No. Oh no. We're going to default on our mortgage now.
Oh no.
This is my favorite question. Any other pet peeves? These are yes.
I can't stand when I go to a restaurant, look at the menu, all the prices, and then they come over to do the specials. Don't tell you the price.
Oh yeah, baby, that's a great one. When they don't tell you the price of the special, and now you have to play the guessing game. You ask.
I just think they're either trying to jack something up or whatever.
Yeah. It's funny. That pet peeve was never on my radar until a couple years ago. I went to Balthazar. Does anyone know Balthazar? It's a very fancy French restaurant in New York City, and they were reading the specials. Do you not like Balthazar? Is that why you're leaving? What happened? What did I say? Why are you leaving? What happened? Do you not like Balthazar? You don't like it? Okay, got it. And very fancy restaurant, and they were coming and reading off the specials, and after everyone, they gave the price. And I was like, whoa, why doesn't every restaurant do this? If it's not good enough, if it's not too good for Balthazar, it shouldn't be too good for anyone. So I'm 100% with you. Yes, so do I. So do I. Man, are you single? Okay.
Yeah, MP.
I'm picking up another man. This is like how I picked up Paul.
Yes.
You can be in our friend group of dinner.
We can start dining together. The MP is always tricky. It's like, what MP? Market
MP,
price.
The market price of the fish. What market price? Everything has a market price.
Right, you're in the middle of the country. It's like, this isn't fresh. It was all frozen at one point. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Price. Market price, like they're going to like a fishmonger. No, you're getting it driven to you in a truck.
That's right.
You know damn well what the market price was.
It was not caught that morning. It was,
Yes.
No chance.
When you ask a waiter or waitress, what do you think of this dish, maybe it has meat in it, and they say, well, I'm vegan, I don't eat that.
Oh.
So it's like, then that guilt just comes right in.
Yes. Is anyone here vegan? Before I go on. You are. Okay. You know, there's refreshments in the back. If you could go back for 1 minute. I just have to get something off my... No, I'm with you on that. I'm going to take it further. Have you ever asked a vegan friend when vegan friends like give you restaurant recommendation advice? Like, oh, you're going to San Francisco? You have to try Johnny's Cassava Hut. I'm like, I don't think I do. I think I'll be fine. Just kidding. We love you. I love quinoa.
Would you restate that one?
Oh, yes. So that was when you go to a restaurant and you ask about a dish, and they say, oh, there's meat in this dish, and I'm vegan, so I can't tell you about this dish. Ugh.
Or the opposite, where they say everything is good.
Yes. Yes. That's a good one, too. When they say...
How do you feel about dining with
Well, actually, okay, this is a pet peeve that I have that people think I'm crazy. I don't like when people ask the server, what should I order, this or that? I hate that because I don't know what the server's opinions are on life. I don't know anything. I don't know.
And yet, you rely on Google stars.
Yes, well, that is an aggregate. It's a...
There's something out of balance with that.
Yes. You missed the funniest part. We were talking about vegans. Do you guys like vegetables? No? Yeah. Sorry, vegans. They're on our team.
One of your pet peeves is dining with someone who's gluten-free.
Well, okay. It's not the actual dining with is anyone here gluten-free? Okay. Oh, the hand went up strong. Did you see that?
I saw it. Very strong.
It is not fun. Right. To embrace it? What is this, like Jesus Christ? It's gluten-free bread. Right. Yeah. Well, okay. My issue is more when gluten-free people are. Now I feel awful.
You just said those people.
Those people.
Those people.
No, it's just like gluten-free people feel like they can make substitutions on the menu, like it's a choose-your-own-adventure, and they'll make substitutions that make no sense whatsoever. Like, hey, can I get the grilled cheese, but instead of the bread, shredded cabbage? What are you talking about? What is happening? Yes.
They make those menus for me. Once I started noticing all these gluten-free menus, I thought they didn't do this for me. But it took I remember when he told me, started my car with the doctor, and then started my car going, ain't no way I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Giving a pie.
So do you look at younger gluten-free people and you're saying, you don't know how good you have it. In my day, you had to guess. She said what? Why bother? Oh, really? For the substitution, you mean? No.
I don't substitute, no.
You don't?
But it's tough to be on the other end of this, because it isn't.
Oh, I know. Trust me. But for comedy's sake, it's very fun to make fun of you guys. Yeah.
Any other pet peeves in the audience?
Yes. Sorry? Font size? Us. Yes, small font on the menu is a good one. Yes, and then you have to do my mom's move of taking out the cell phone camera with the Take out the what's it called?
The magnifying glass?
No, not the the light, the flashlight.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, you just. I will never take the flashlight out. I am literally just going to point to things on the menu.
That's why the restaurants are so bright now.
Yeah, I know. I'll just be like, I'll take this, this, and this, and have no idea what's coming.
Amazing. Should we move to a Q&A? Sure. All right.
Okay, for those of you online, I trust you followed along. Thank you for reiterating what we got from the audience. We'll take questions here and online. Megan will read the online questions. For those of you here, and I know many of you have seen this before, I will bring you this microphone and it will be on. Please speak into the microphone and not near the microphone or over, or this end doesn't work. Right into this metal part of the microphone. Stand if you're able, and in the spirit
Who do you think
of,
these people are? You just said don't speak into the back of the microphone? These are very erudite people. I said Johns Hopkins. They didn't bat an eye.
There was no microphone technique class at Harvard.
Right.
Stand if you're able, and
By the way, James and I met 20 years ago, which is crazy.
it's a true story.
I was doing like the college circuit, doing stand-up at colleges, and he was booking for his college, and we had a shot of tequila together 20 years ago.
Yep.
Isn't that wild? Like totally.
Don't tell my mom I was underage at the time. In the spirit of tonight, feel free to add a little context of your culinary adventures for Paul and Dan to respond to. Lori, did I see your hand go up? You ready?
So I'm just wondering.
Oh, that was perfect. She used the microphone backwards for everyone behind her.
So I'm just wondering, with your love of food and your restaurants and your hunting, do you like to cook? Because you didn't talk about that at all.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I love cooking. Absolutely love to cook. So I did actually cook at a Michelin-starred restaurant in New York for a couple summers, and learned everything that I could about cooking. I absolutely love to cook. I love everything about cooking. I think the more I learn how to cook, the more I think that cookbooks are kind of a waste of time, right? And I think it's a lot easier to cook when you just rely on your instincts. But I think we're taught by the Food Network and by all these things that if you mess it up by 1 teaspoon, the whole dish is going to be, ruined. No, I absolutely love cooking. You've eaten my food.
I have eaten your food.
Yeah. And he didn't say if it was good or bad, which he's still alive. He still made it, yeah.
He makes excellent steak.
Thank you. It's the easiest thing to make. He can heat up a piece of meat.
Well, in
No, I'm
defense,
kidding.
you have a whole thing about eating rare for 2024.
Oh yeah, 2024. I'm ordering beef rare. That's it. Who's with me? Yes. Because I want it to be medium rare, and it's never medium rare. It's always medium, and I'd rather have a rare steak than a medium steak. So I'm going rare. That's my game theory. TED Talk. Are you guys having fun? Is this better than Scott Pelley? Way better, right? Yeah. Are you learning more than about the equity of light? Are you learning more? Anyone go to that? Light makes you happy? Okay, yes. I'm just roasting the other
Yeah, the symposium.
guest. Okay,
James,
yes.
you're doing a great job. Megan, you as well.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you
you.
for your service.
Yes.
I was going to ask you if you think cookbooks have gone by the wayside, and you answered it pretty much. You said you don't even bother with cookbooks anymore.
No, but I mean, they're selling more than they ever have, right? I think that you are getting a lot of recipes online, obviously, but now you're getting like the celebrity cookbook thing, which basically they'll go to a celebrity and say, will you put your name on this? And then we'll just have like a whole team to come up with recipes. And they come up with recipes for them and cookware and everything. Everything's become branded. But look, I still love a great cookbook in terms of, for a coffee table book. They're fun to leaf through. I think it's funny when people become too reliant on them. Like, what's your favorite cookbook? Yeah.
I'm still a Moosewood fan.
A what? Moosewood?
Molly Katzen.
Oh, yes, in Ithaca. Yeah, I almost went to that restaurant. Yeah. But then I realized I'm not vegan. But it's... No, but that's like a super famous vegetarian cookbook, right? What?
You know, Dan Buettner, you're familiar with his work? The other Dan?
The Blue Zone about like living to 1,000 years old?
Living to 100?
Yeah, the key is come to Vail and become a skier, apparently.
Get your hip replaced, get your knee replaced, you will live a lot longer. It's perfect. I will say this about cookbooks. I know there's a lot of Symposium events that are talking about artificial intelligence. If you want to not use a cookbook anymore, and you don't want to go online where you have to read someone's like 10-page story about the thing that you're about, just like give me the ingredients and give me the directions. ChatGPT is amazing at this. It's amazing. You literally just put in what it is you want, and it will give you a recipe, and you can say, well, I don't like that thing, and it'll give you a different version of it. I don't like that thing. Can I do more of this or less of this? And it literally breaks it down for you in a way that is phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Guys, we're all going to be out of jobs. All of us.
Paul, are the details of a recipe more important in a cocktail than it would be in a food dish?
So, no. So I wrote a cocktail book all about the world of Italian cocktails, and I firmly believe that bartenders really, really take the cocktail world way too seriously, because they're taking 10 minutes to make a drink, and there's 5 different ingredients that you've never heard of. But the average drinker doesn't know and doesn't care that because you fat washed your Campari, it makes it taste 10% better. No one knows what that means, and so no, I think it's even though I wrote a whole book about it, I think it's way less important than it is with food. So
is anyone drunk right now? You are. The hunter is. That's scary.
These refrigerator pictures, what are some of the more interesting things or maybe gross things you've seen?
Ooh, that is a good one. The half an avocado seems to be a real polarizing thing. Do you to cover or not to cover? That is the question. A lot of people leave the half avocado out, and then they'll slice the brown part off before they use it. And some people will cover it with
plastic wrap.
Yeah. And some people buy this plastic concoction that looks like a half an avocado, like a psychopath. And they'll put it in it and close it up. Sorry, I'm off my meds today. But yeah, I think the avocado has been a big polarizing thing. I'm trying to think. Oh, there was someone who had there was a hunter that I had on the show. I'm trying to remember who, and he did it for fun, but it was basically like the whole head of a sheep was like in his fridge. Yeah, like with fur and everything. And he has children too, so I feel bad for them. Yeah, I don't know. I've seen some things. From our online audience. Is that them online?
Somewhere out there.
Hello.
They might be in the room just watching on their phones too and not want to read it themselves out loud.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure.
If you could have anyone cook for you, living or dead, who would it be and what?
Whoa.
I like that question. That's a good question.
Wow, that's an amazing question. Living or dead, who would I want to cook for me? Okay, so there's this. Wait, I want to go with the dead. The dead is more fun. Okay. I think it would be really interesting to eat this is going to be highbrowish, but like Paul Bocuse, who like kind of invented like French fine dining, I think it would be really interesting to eat his food because he invented all these weird dishes. Did you know this? This is crazy. If you go to a lot of very high-end French restaurants, there's a special chicken dish that they take a chicken, they take shaved truffles, put it under the skin, and they cook this chicken in the bladder of a pig. Who thought of this?
Who was first?
Who was the first person who said, yeah, roast chicken is good, but hear me out, guys. Let's put it in the bladder of a pig. Is it a precursor to sous vide? Yeah, I guess so. All right. Wait, I take it all back. It probably is, because they did boil it. They would boil the... Are you a chef? Is this a gotcha question? Are you here? Is it a precursor to sous vide?
I don't know.
I don't know. Either way, it's gross.
Somebody else is suggesting it's an early turducken.
Oh, really? I love the online audience. First of all, you didn't even get into your car to come over here. And now you're Googling stuff for us? Sorry, I mean, some of you just can't.
You talked about having fun at meals. So I think there's a lot of inappropriate and appropriate dinner conversations.
Yes.
That's a pet peeve of mine.
Yes!
And especially for people who talk about their medical problems to be limited to no more than 3 minutes. But
my man, are you single? All right, wait, hold on. I couldn't agree more, and I have this thing.
Number one.
My number one thing, I will get up and leave a table if there's scatological anything going on. That people are, bathroom humor at the table? No. Big no-no. And Paul Feinstein loves talking about that at the table. That is why I brought you here. This is actually an intervention, Paul. We all love you here, and we think you're going astray.
Just so you know, when you buy Dan's book after this is all over, he has an amazing hunting chapter, which...
Okay, next question. Next question.
Goes deep in this conversation.
You're in a foreign country, say Greece, and you're going to order a bottle of wine. There's American wine you recognize, and then there's a bunch of wines in Greek that you don't know what is. What do you order?
Very good question. So, actually, I will first off say, the Greeks make one of the best white wines out there, and if you see one on a menu, actually there was one last night at Montauk on the menu called a Sertico. And a Sertico is a white wine that's very interesting because it only grows in Santorini. And in fact, it's the only wine that never got phylloxera. Are you guys familiar with phylloxera? So there was this big, real quick, there was this big disease that went around all of the, yawn if this is too interesting for you. There was a big disease that went around and wiped out basically all of the vines in Europe. And the only reason that they're still there now is because American rootstock from Napa Valley, they brought them over and they grafted them on to the European ones. So we saved the goddamn wine industry. USA, USA. However, the only grapes that were not affected by phylloxera were Sertico grapes because they grow on this island in Santorini. They're so great because it gets this salt water that's wafting from the Mediterranean will go over these grapes, and so it's like this really salty, savory, beautiful white wine. And a Sertico, A-S-S-Y, Ertico. And but if I was in a foreign country, 100% I would take their recommendation and ask for what's interesting, and tell them, what you like and what their version of that is. The Greeks have their version of Cabernet Sauvignon, which is called Gino Mavro, which is like a very, big red, and it's really beautiful and delicious. And it would be, then you can go to dinner parties and sound all pretentious and be like, "Have you had Gino Mavro?" I have.
That's a Dale wine.
That's a Dale wine?
That's a Dale wine.
Dale,
He likes Big Red.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, Dale kicked my ass today. do another mogul run. No, Dale.
Don't feel bad, he kicks everybody's butt on.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, I'm not a huge television fan, but in the past year there were 2 shows I found completely compelling. Wondering what your impressions are of both Lessons in Chemistry and The Bear.
Lessons in Chemistry and what?
The Bear.
Oh, and The Bear. I actually didn't see Lessons in Chemistry, but I hear it's good. I hear the book is great. That's how you can sound smart.
The book is great.
I hear the book is
The book
great.
is wonderful.
But I've watched every episode of The Bear. It gives me anxiety. I love it. I have to keep watching it. I don't know that it's quite a comedy because it's winning all these awards for comedy, best comedy. But yeah, I mean, look, again, anything that gives more attention to restaurants and to giving empathy for restaurant workers, I think is great. And I'm a huge fan of that show.
I think the episode where Richie stages at the Michelin restaurant in Chicago is one of the most beautiful episodes of television in the last 5 years. I just think it's just, if you are a restaurant person and you love that high-end dining world and they know that a teacher couple is coming in to eat and they can't even afford it. They've saved up for a year to eat at this one restaurant, and you see the meeting and they say, this couple will not be paying for their meal tonight. We're going to give them it's just like this beautiful snapshot of like fine dining that I don't think anyone has captured quite as well as that.
No, it's like the best
thing.
defense of fine dining ever. If you're not into fine dining, like that's a good episode to watch, to be like, why? I don't get it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Question on when you're at a...
No, Dale, we're not doing moguls tomorrow.
All right, we'll only do one. It'll be great.
Okay, deal.
A question, when you're at a restaurant and maybe you've got some other people, but particularly for yourself, and you're ordering a bottle of wine and for the entree course, what do you look for to sort of match it to? The sauce, the meat, etc.?
So we had an interesting wine experience at Montauk last night, choosing the wines. I mean, okay, I'm going to start by saying, and Dale, you might not like this, but I'm way less dogmatic about pairing wine and foods. Like, I think if you want a red wine with fish, you have a red wine with fish. I don't normally go that crazy with it, but I do with levels of like, how hearty is something and how non-hearty is something. But what I do look for lately is unsung regions. I love a region that hasn't been bumped up by globalization. French Burgundies are the most overpriced wines out there. Napa Cabernet, very expensive. But there's a lot of fun regions that people don't know about. We were talking about Walla Walla, Washington. A lot of people don't know about that yet, and their wines are amazing. Or like the central coast of California, like Santa Barbara County is making some fantastic wines. So I personally I like the interestingness of like trying to find those weird unsung regions, more so than actually like pairing it with the food. I mean, as long as you keep it, within reason.
All right, another online question. At a restaurant, when ordering, how many modifications on a dish are appropriate?
Ooh. Ooh.
Did you just text that in? Honestly, I think it depends on the place.
It depends on the place. 100%.
I think it depends on the place. If it's one of those chef-driven places that you're going there to have the chef's experience of X, Y, and Z, it's a little tough to get away with it. If you're going to a place that's like for lack of a better word, because I just went there, but like the Four Seasons, where their whole thing is to just like, the customer's always right, your wish is my command, have at it, Or if it's like a corporate place, like a corporate chain place, like a
Houston's or any Hillstone restaurant.
Hillstone restaurants are my favorite chain restaurant.
They're
I don't know if you call it a chain restaurant. But.
I think that the chef, like a lot of chefs they're artists, and look, some are more dogmatic than others, and some get more upset about it than others. But some of these these chefs they're really doing things that are so different and unique that to a point, like I understand why they would get bent out of shape, because they slaved over this thing to create this combination of flavors that you're just like, nah. And it's just like, they do know more than you. So,
I do think it's okay to ask and say, hey, if you can't do it, then that's fine too, but like it would be nice.
Yeah.
You know?
Like father's office.
You don't want to be like, excuse me, my wife is pregnant, she can't have this tuna, can you switch it out with this? Like, no, she will have this. She must have the mercury tuna.
You've obviously had all kinds of food, all kinds of cuisines, but I'm curious, what are your comfort foods?
Ooh.
My comfort foods are food, I love, like when I'm sick at home, I love like food from the Levant. So Middle Eastern, like bread, hummus, shawarma, falafel, that stuff to me hits so hard. What's your favorite comfort food? Cherry pie? Really? Man, I've never had less of a desire for a pie than a cherry pie. Sell me on a cherry pie. Sell me on a cherry pie. Why is a cherry pie for you?
It probably does date back to my childhood, and my grandmother and mother made them a lot.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's the best comfort food, right?
Mine's Italian. It's always Italian.
Yeah.
But also, it's interesting, you know, we get these questions a lot because we do eat at a lot of really fancy places, and I'm sure you get this as well, where someone will say, oh, you only like to eat at these 20-course places where you're going to get gout, and it's like not... So for me, I'm not going to speak for Dan, but for me, I just want, and this sort of goes back to like the chef as an artist, I just want the person who cares the most about the thing that they're doing. So if that's the bacon-wrapped hot dog on the street, I want to find the person who's obsessed with doing that one thing better than anybody else has ever done it ever. Whether that's a $5 meal or...
Yes, it's weird when he interviews the bacon-wrapped hot dog person on the street. Like, where did you go to culinary school? Señor, yo no hablo inglés. That's an LA joke.
Yeah. But I just want the best version of a thing, and that's really the only thing I actually care about. I just want the person who's giving me, who's taking the time to really put their heart and soul into whatever it is they're making, regardless of the price point and the time and all that other stuff. So,
do any of the kids have a question? Do you have any questions? Do you want to say something about food? No?
I'll channel my daughter while they're thinking about that. When no one's looking, and it's not going to get published, what's your guilty pleasure food?
Oh, what's my guilty pleasure food? I
have an idea.
Do you have one?
For you?
Yeah. No.
Maybe breakfast carbonara.
Oh yeah. This was really funny. I woke up once. I was very hungover, and I didn't want to cook, so I called up Paul, and I said, "Hey, Paul, I love pasta carbonara." So pasta carbonara to me is like the best hangover food because it's basically a bacon, egg, and cheese, but fancy, right? Like pasta's bread, the guanciale is the bacon, and the pecorino is the cheese. But it's so annoying to make. So I called Paul and I was like, Paul, I would love for you to come over and give me a tutorial on how to make a carbonara. And he was like, I would love to show you. I said, great. He came over, and he saw that I was in bad shape. I was like, I'm just going to stay in bed. Go make me the carbonara. He brought all the supplies and everything.
I had guanciale. I had the best Parmigiano.
Yeah, pasta carbonara for
Bamboozled.
breakfast in bed that's gross. I like that.
You've talked a lot about hunting. I grew up in a hunting family, a lot of waterfowlers, deer hunters. You haven't actually mentioned what you've hunted, because there's lots of types of hunting, right? You could be a big game hunter where you're not eating the lion that you paid $100,000 to shoot, right?
Right.
What kind of hunting do you do, and what is the best game meal you've had, and how soon after you killed the animal did you eat it?
Wow, great question. You know what's interesting, though? You bring up the big game hunting, which even that has a really interesting, like, ethical defense. And I would never do it. It seems weird to me. But that $100,000 that someone is paying, that $100,000 that Don Jr. is paying to go kill a lion, is basically all going towards conservation of that area. And this is something that people get wrong with hunters, every time, you know this, every time you get your hunting license, every single penny of that goes to conservation. It's a law that I think Teddy Roosevelt put it into place, and it's one of the few bureaucracies that works perfectly. No one can use that money for anything except for environmental conservation. So in a weird twist, hunters do more for environmental conservation than every environmental group in America combined, which is wild if you think about it. But what you asked was what I hunt. I hunt waterfowl and I just went actually crane hunting in Texas. Ribeye in the sky is what it's called. Yeah, sandhill crane. It's a delicious, beautiful red meat. I've gone elk hunting in New Mexico on public lands, and deer hunting in New York, usually every year at my buddy's place. Anything with a pulse.
And what's the soonest you've eaten a hunted meal after the kill?
I actually did. Heart. I think that the heart of the animal is the most delicious piece of meat, and the organs, you need to eat them fairly quickly. So I love, the heart of any animal is like the best tasting meat, I think. So I will usually make that first, or any of the organs usually need to be eaten first. If the vegans are disgusted, I'm sorry. What about you? Yeah, I wasn't hitting on you. It's okay.
They went out in the evening. My family has a cabin on the coast of the Mississippi in Iowa. 70 years, I think, in the family. And they went out and shot a bunch of ducks, and we ate them for dinner an hour and a half after we got back.
Oh, wow.
Pretty much the amount of time it took to feather them, clean them, and cook them was the extent of time between alive and...
That's quick. It sounds like it was like a game show.
It was pretty sweet. There was a lot of hands involved.
Yeah.
Also, to plug Dan's book one more time, there's an entire chapter about this as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, about the elk hunting and all that, yeah. What's that? No, not really. I'm pretty bad at it. I went recently with with a friend of mine in LA who's a fisherman, and I was so bad, but we got off the boat, and his other friend was there who was a fisherman, and they had just gone bluefin tuna fishing, and they caught all these enormous bluefin tunas, and they were throwing out the heads. And I was like, can I have a tuna head? And he was like, yeah. And I invited all the fishermen to come to my house, and I took this tuna head and I put it in a smoker, and it was so delicious, but the smoker got so disgusting. And funny enough, I ended up selling that smoker the next day. And I feel really bad for the person who got it. But no, I am not a good fisherman, but I love feeding fishermen, so they bring me their fish.
All right, one last question. Not about honey, but back to the restaurants.
Wait, are you establishing who's doing the last question? Are you just tired of this event? You're like, all right, we're gonna wrap it up. We gotta get out of here.
I've been trying. No, seriously though, how do you handle when you're at a restaurant and this sweet little server comes over and asks you, how was everything, everybody, and you didn't like it?
What's your favorite question?
And how honest are you in...
Yeah.
I never know what to do. Sometimes I'll say it, sometimes I just say, the hell with it, keep my mouth shut.
Okay, great question. So when it comes to returning food, first of all, if I get something that I'm not into, this is my new technique to return. If you guys are squeamish about returning food, this is my new technique. You say, listen, unless there's something egregiously wrong with it, like it's cooked well done and I ordered it rare because it's 2024, the year of rare. If you just didn't like it, but it was cooked okay, I usually will say, listen, I'm not enjoying this too much. I'll pay for it because it's fine, but can I get this instead? 10 times out of 10, they're not going to charge you for that. That's Dan's hot tip. But I think that at the end of the meal, if they're coming over and they're asking you, I think it's totally fine to say that some things were off, No?
So
did we do it at Lowry's? We didn't do it at Lowry's.
We didn't do it at Lowry's, but we
But
also...
Lowry's was so cartoonishly bad that it was like
bad.
funny.
I think so if you eat your entire meal and then at the end, and like your plate is like licked clean, and they're like, how was it? And you're like, I don't know if you have a leg to stand on. If half the thing is still there, then you can say, it wasn't my favorite dish of the night.
Unless they really truly want the feedback, but most of the time they don't.
They don't
I think
want
it's
it.
Just
No one really likes honest feedback. They say they do, but they don't.
Yeah.
Okay, we try to start on time, we try to end on time. So I have something to say after you clap, but ladies and gentlemen, Paul Feinstein and Dan Ahdoot.
Thank you.